Most people live their entire lives under a ceiling they can't see. They work, they save, they struggle, but they never actually move. They think wealth is a destination, like a city on a map. But wealth isn't a place. It's a physical state of escape velocity. In the world of 2026, there is a very specific, cold, and calculated number that marks your exit from the gravitational pull of poverty. And it's not $1 million. It's much more dangerous. It's 20,000. Financial gurus love to talk about the magic of compound interest while you're drowning in inflation. They want you to visualize a mansion while you're staring at a grocery receipt in horror. They're selling you the roof. But I'm here to talk about the foundation, because until you hit $20,000, money is your master. After $20,000, money becomes your employee. The rules of physics literally flip. My name is the architect, and this is the sovereign. We don't believe in luck. We believe in the cold mechanics of capital. Today, I'm going to strip away the motivational nonsense and show you the biological and mathematical reality of why your first 20,000 is the hardest war you'll ever fight, and how, once you win it, the rest of the world starts working for you. Think of a massive commercial jet on a runway. It consumes 25% of its entire fuel just to reach takeoff speed. It's loud, it's violent, and for a long time, it feels like you're just burning energy without going anywhere. Most people get scared by the vibration and hit the brakes before they ever leave the ground. They spend their lives taxiing on the runway. $20,000 is your V1, your takeoff speed. Once you're in the air, you can throttle back. The resistance vanishes. But here's what nobody tells you. The hardest part isn't the work, it's your brain. Before you reach this threshold, your mind is in a state of cognitive siege. You aren't making choices, you are reacting to threats. You are a hostage to the next 30 days. Let's look at the neurochemistry of why being broke makes you objectively less intelligent, and how $20,000 is the only cure. Wealth is not a game of math, it is a game of biological permission. When your bank account is near zero, you are physically incapable of being a strategist. Your brain is in a state of cognitive tunneling. Your field of vision narrows down to the next 30 days. You aren't playing chess to win, you are playing not to lose. And in the game of capital, if you play not to lose, you've already been defeated. Psychologists call this the scarcity trap. It's like being a grandmaster at chess, but your opponent has a gun to your head. You can't think about a checkmate in 10 moves when your only goal is to survive the next second. This is why you accept that soul-crushing job. This is why you say yes to a boss who devalues you. You aren't being loyal. You are a biological hostage to your own lack of margin. Research into neuroeconomics shows that poverty actually lowers your effective IQ by up to 13 points. That's the difference between being average and being gifted. You are literally walking around with a brain that is being throttled by stress hormones like cortisol. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of you that builds empires, is offline. You are a Ferrari stuck in first gear because you can't afford the fuel to shift. Then comes the first shift, just $2,000. For most, that's a new MacBook or a week in the sun. But for a sovereign, it's the first layer of armor. Data shows this tiny buffer boosts your cognitive well-being by 21%. Why? Because for the first time in your life, a flat tire isn't a financial catastrophe. It's just an inconvenience. You've bought back your first hour of sanity. But at $20,000, the siege is lifted. This is the breathing room threshold. You no longer ask, how do I survive Friday? You ask, which asset should I acquire next? You've moved from defense to offense. You've transitioned from being a reactive animal to a proactive architect. This $20K isn't a reward. It's the oxygen required to fuel your vision. Now that you can finally breathe, let's talk about how we turn this oxygen into a fire. Now, let's look at the cold hard numbers. Most people fail because they expect a linear path to wealth, but wealth is exponential. Let's say you invest $1,000 every month into the market. To reach your first $20,000, it takes roughly 19 months of grueling discipline. 19 months of saying no to the world so you can say yes to your future. It feels like a treadmill that's going nowhere. But then the physics of capital kick in. Your second $20,000 doesn't take another 19 months. It takes 17. You did the exact same amount of work, you took the same risk, but you just saved 60 days of your life. Why? Because for the first time, you aren't working alone. Your first 20,000 has been drafted into your army. It's a soldier that never sleeps, never eats, and never complains. As you move toward the third, the fourth, and the fifth milestone, the timeline collapses. By the time you hit $400,000, generating the next $20,000 takes only 5 months. The work that once took you nearly 2 years is now happening automatically while you sleep. This is the comical acceleration of wealth. The machine is finally built. Now it just needs to be fed. The gurus want you to believe there's a secret society or a hidden hedge fund that only the elite can access. The truth is much more insulting to the average person. It's just basic scale. A 10% return on $2,000 is a nice dinner. A 10% return on $20,000 is a month's rent. The strategy is the same. The risk is the same. The only difference is the weight of the hammer you're swinging. At $20,000, earning 8% annually brings $1,600 into your life for doing absolutely nothing. That is money you didn't have to trade your time for. It's the first time you've successfully decoupled your income from your pulse. You are no longer just a laborer. You are a sovereign, and you've just hired your first full-time employee, your capital. But let's talk about the most valuable asset you've actually built. It isn't the $20,000 in your brokerage account. It's the person you had to become to get there. To reach this number from zero, you had to perform a total rewiring of your neural pathways. You had to kill the impulsive version of yourself and birth a sovereign. You didn't just save money, you built the muscle of delayed gratification, the rarest skill in 2026. Think about the discipline required. You tracked every dollar. You resisted the dopamine hits of meaningless consumption. You said no to the world for months, maybe years. In doing so, you proved the most dangerous truth in the world. You can control your money instead of letting it control you. You are no longer a victim of the algorithm. You are the architect of your own pulse. This shift changes your daily reality. Before $20K, a $4 coffee was a moral dilemma. Now, you don't sweat the small stuff not because you're reckless, but because your priorities are ironclad. You've already made the big sacrifices. You've conquered the summit. Why would you worry about the pebbles on the path? But the real predator move happens now. You stop seeing threats and start seeing entry points. To the average person, a broken car or a rent hike is a disaster. To a sovereign with $20,000, these are minor inconveniences, or better yet, signals to upgrade. When your friend mentions a new venture or a real estate deal pops up, you don't just listen anymore. You calculate, because for the first time in your life, you actually have a seat at the table. At $20,000, you don't just see the world, you see the entry points. When a friend mentions a startup or a distressed property hits the market, you aren't a spectator anymore. You are a participant. Wealthy people don't have a cosmic conspiracy favoring them. They simply have the option premium. Having capital gives you the right to say yes when the world presents a bargain. But here is where you will question everything you've been taught about budgeting. You need to stop obsessing over $3, coffees, and generic brand cereals. When you are broke, these micro decisions consume 90% of your mental energy. You are wasting the power of your brain on the economics of pennies while the economics of empires passes you by. Let's do the math. Saving $3 a day on coffee is roughly $1,000 a year. It's a drop in the ocean. A sovereign knows that wealth isn't built by agonizing over organic bananas. It's built by optimizing the big three: your housing, your transportation, and your investment yield. One strategic shift in your mortgage or your career will outweigh a decade of skipping lattes. This shift is liberating. It frees your mental bandwidth for what actually matters: scaling your income. Instead of spending 2 hours searching for a coupon, you spend those 2 hours learning a high-value skill or negotiating a $10,000 raise. $20,000 is the minimum altitude required to stop looking at the dirt and start looking at the horizon. You've moved from micromanagement to macro sovereignty. Let's be honest. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, you aren't an employee. You are a modern-day serf. You tolerate the toxic boss, the mind-numbing tasks, and the unpaid overtime, not because you're loyal, but because you're afraid. Your lack of a margin is a leash around your neck, and your employer knows exactly how short it is. Desperation has a scent, and it ruins your negotiation power before you even open your mouth. But $20,000 cuts the leash. This is what I call the sovereign ultimatum. It's the quiet, dangerous confidence that comes from knowing you could walk out that door tomorrow and be perfectly fine for 6 months. You aren't being reckless. You are being powerful. For the first time, you don't need the job more than they need you. The power dynamic has flipped, and the air in the room suddenly feels different. This shift isn't just about quitting. It's about how you show up. You start asking for the raise you deserve, not as a plea, but as a business proposition. You say no to unreasonable demands because the threat of being fired is no longer a death sentence. You explore new horizons because you have the fuel to bridge the gap. Ironically, the less you need the money, the more of it starts flowing toward you. Confidence is the ultimate multiplier. You don't even have to spend a cent of that $20,000. Its mere existence changes your biology. You speak slower, you stand taller, you take risks that others are too terrified to even consider. You've moved from a position of "please let me stay" to "here is why you need me." That is the essence of being a sovereign. You own your time because you finally own your peace of mind. Here is the paradox. The moment you start acting like you don't need the money, the world starts throwing more of it at you. It's a positive feedback loop. You're walking away money, creates a psychological aura that screams competence. You get the better projects, the higher raises, and the strategic recognition. But this is where 99% of people fail. They reach the first summit, they see the $20,000, and they mistake the foundation for the furniture. They decide they deserve a reward. They take that seed, that $20,000 foundation, and they incinerate it. They buy a depreciating metal box on wheels or a vacation that lasts 7 days but costs 7 months of freedom. They take their first real army and send them into a massacre. Don't do this. $20,000 is not a prize. It is a seed for generational wealth. If you kill the seed, you will never see the forest. Let's talk about the greatest wealth incinerator in human history, the automobile. The average person spends more on their car over a lifetime than it would cost to buy their total financial independence. Between payments, insurance, and the silent killer called depreciation, you are hemorrhaging your future. You are driving your retirement off a cliff every single morning. In 2026, a new car is a liability masked as a status symbol. The moment you drive it off the lot, 20% of your hard-earned freedom evaporates into thin air. You aren't just paying for transportation, you are actively destroying the capital that was supposed to set you free. A sovereign drives a vehicle that serves them. A serf drives a vehicle that owns them. Look at the average person. They drop $800 a month on a metal box that depreciates while they sleep. Over 40 years, that's $400,000 incinerated just to move from point A to point B. They complain they can't afford freedom while paying for a gym membership they never use and a lifestyle they can't sustain. It's a tragedy of misplaced priorities. They are buying the facade of success while destroying the mechanics of it. The second you drive a new car off the lot, 20% of your capital vanishes. You aren't just spending, you are actively sabotaging your future self. I understand the emotional lure. You want to look reliable, successful, powerful, but there is nothing powerful about a monthly payment that keeps you awake at night. A car payment makes you look wealthy. A $20,000 foundation makes you actually wealthy. At $20,000, your perspective shifts from can I afford the payment to what is the true cost of this choice? That $30,000 car isn't just $30,000. It is the $200,000 that could have been in your account 20 years from now. When you see it this way, driving a reliable used vehicle isn't a sacrifice. It's a strategic strike. You aren't settling. You are funding your exit from the system. And here is the beautiful irony. The man in the flashy new car is often a slave to his next paycheck, terrified of his boss. The man in the 10-year-old Honda with $20,000 working in the background is the one who truly owns the room. One is wearing a mask of power. The other possesses the reality of it. Wealth is what you don't see. Freedom is what you feel when you finally stop performing for others. The man in the flashy car is a performer. He's auditioning for a role in a life he can't afford, stressed by the very stage he built. But the sovereign in the older vehicle, he isn't performing. He's preparing. He sleeps better not because he has a better mattress, but because he has a better foundation. This isn't just about money. It's about the lens through which you see reality. It's the lens of opportunity cost. Every vacation, every hobby, every square foot of your apartment is now a strategic trade. Is that bigger room worth 5 years of your life? Is that expensive habit worth your autonomy? This isn't being a miser. It's being intentional. It's realizing that half the things you wanted were just echoes of a marketing campaign designed to keep you in the race. A sovereign doesn't run the race. He owns the track. $20,000 won't make you a billionaire by tomorrow morning, but it will grant you the most expensive luxury in the world: options. It is the razor's edge between surviving and thriving. It is the moment you stop reacting to the world and start designing it. You are no longer a leaf in the wind. You are the wind itself. The decision you make today isn't just a financial one. It's a message to your future self. It's a promise that you will no longer be a victim of your own impulses. Build the foundation. Secure your sovereignty, because the person you are becoming 10 years from now is watching you right now. Don't let them down. They are waiting for you at the finish line.